Multidisciplinary team is where you bring together experts from a range of different disciplines and professions.
Core idea for me in the multidisciplinary team that the people there can make a decision.
A multidisciplinary team is where you bring together experts from a range of different disciplines and professions. More traditionally, perhaps you work on policy and then you pass it over to delivery teams, whereas this is really bringing people together to work on something together. By getting the right expert input into the early stages of policy design, you're able to give the best possible advice to ministers, get the best possible decisions about the policy, and ensure that the policy can be implemented effectively. One of my previous roles, I led on policy and engagement for the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme, one of the government's economic responses to the COVID pandemic. Many of us will vividly remember March 2020, when lockdown happened from the COVID pandemic. Ministers were very clear, very quickly, that as part of the government's response to this, we needed to provide economic support to allow people to continue their lives and the economy to be able to recover. We had, first of all, the Furlough Scheme for people in employment, very swiftly followed, just a matter of weeks later, by the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme for those who are self-employed. From the time the Minister announced the scheme to the first payments being made was 6 weeks. So the multidisciplinary team was vital to the success of this project. Here we had regular calls, so every day or twice a day, bringing people together who are working on the project to share information about the latest, what ministers wanted, what a delivery constraint was, what customers were telling us.
My name is Phil Batchelor, and during COVID I was responsible for the policy of the CGRS scheme, which most people would know as the Furlough Scheme. Well, what was actually great, I thought, about the multidisciplinary team approach is in practice it's slightly more informal. So whereas for a more conventional project you'd have kind of boards and very formal meetings, throughout the days we would just gather kind of spontaneously to resolve issues as they arose.
Hi, my name's Matthew Cliff. I work for Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, or HMRC. A couple of weeks into the development of the furlough scheme, I was asked, Philip needed some people to help some employers that were testing parts of the claim process and the calculator to make sure that they could use the guidance and the support that we were providing. We had an understanding of how they worked and some of the issues that they faced, and we could support them. We were well placed to support them to help test the process.
I'm Beth Timson. I work at the Treasury where I'm a policy advisor. My job was to lead the policy unit within the Treasury that was advising the Chancellor on how he might change the scheme, different designs. And we really quickly got into a rhythm where Treasury ministers were asking us every week for meetings and advice and thinking about different designs and changes they could make to the team. So we would be hearing those requests, looking at them and speaking with colleagues like Phil to work out what the options were, talk about who we might be able to draw in and get advice from to help us design things.
My name's Adam Roberts. I'm a Principal Behavioural Analyst, Trials Advisor for HMRC. We were brought in to help optimise those comms, to make sure that people knew about these schemes, they knew where to get them, how to get them. We also advised on the guidance, so making sure that the most important aspects of the guidance were front and centre. How are people going to respond, and how can we ensure that response is as closely aligned to the way that we want them to as possible?
Have the confidence to engage people early. Don't feel that you have to wait until you've got all of the answers and worked it through yourself. Bring people in and trust that you can build it together. Second one for me is it's about speaking different languages. So really work on communicating intent. Explain what's behind a steer that you're getting from the minister. Help people understand to allow them to give you the best answers. The first is you bring the understanding of what ministers want, what might land, what might get through Parliament, what might be acceptable, and what's likely to deliver the intention that ministers have. And it's really important that you bring that and communicate that. The second is to work really hard at demystifying what policy is. Often a lot of other people in the multidisciplinary team don't really understand, but they think we do some kind of secret and special thing when we talk to ministers. And that can feel a bit intimidating sometimes. So work hard at being a person, being friendly, demystifying some of that, actively encouraging others to step up and give their advice and input, even if it might be a difficult message, even if it might make your policy delivery harder.
The more you can kind of trust where everyone else is coming from, provide the certainty but don't necessarily feel you have to police the entire operation, then I think you can get to that point of a genuinely kind of seamless team of peers, and that's the point where it starts really to work and where you get the benefits of that approach.
The first is creating space for experts. It's sometimes really easy to think, oh, I've got this deadline, I need to advise the minister now, and so you concentrate on doing that. But I really learned the value in waiting an extra 24 hours, 48 hours to get the right expert opinion into that advice, to allow you to do better policy design, which can allow better policy delivery. The second thing is about how you go about getting that input. And for me, it's about having a sense of common purpose. And so one of the things I try to do now is not talk about it as my policy or my team's policy, but I try and see it as our policy and our delivery.
What I took away from it was that there was lots of value in that way of working that wouldn't apply only to a crisis. So getting the right people there, empowering them, not letting yourself get bogged down in all the governance. So the challenge for the civil service now, I think, is to keep those multidisciplinary teams going, embed that way of working even in a kind of non-crisis time, so that we can take advantage of that for everything.